Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Once you've learned how to write a simple rhythm and make it a little bit more interesting with things like syncopation, how do you then take it to the next level? In this video, I'm going to be showing you how you can use triplets to really level up your rhythms and make them sound super awesome. Let's dive in. So this video is all about triplets. Now, I would like to start off by explaining what triplets are for those of you who don't, and then I'm going to show you how you can use them to really level up your simple rhythms, well, to make them more interesting. So the quick explanation of a triplet is 3 notes played in the space of 2 notes. Okay, so let's dive into a region for this. So I'm going to take this little guy. Hello. Oh, not that one. Let's not start with the complicated one, shall we? There we go. So what we have here is we have 4 notes, and they are all, what notes are they? Quarter notes. That's right, quarter notes. So if we were to have quarter notes as triplets, we would try and fit 3 notes in the space of where 2 notes would be. So let's take a look at this in terms of MIDI. So that's 2 notes. So now we're just going to hazard a guess at this right now. And oftentimes you have to kind of do this a little bit with triplets. Now, that isn't quite triplets just yet. I don't think it is anyway. But you can see that they are fitting in the space of those 2 notes. Now, for you to ensure your triplets are actually triplets and not just heavily swung sixteenths, although if it sounds the same, anyway, we're going to go down to here. There is a quantized thing in most DAWs where you can choose the rhythmic quantization, and oftentimes we all stick around sixteenths, eighth notes. But for this, we're going to use triplets. Now, you'll notice it says half note triplet, quarter note triplet, eighth note triplet, 16th, 30th, etc., etc. As we're dealing with quarter notes, we want these to be quarter note triplets. Ta-da! And there we have it. So that is a quarter note triplet. Now let's have a listen to it. What does it do to the rhythm? Yes, it drives the rhythm. It kind of slaps you around the face to say, hey, wake up. Something interesting is happening here. And that's why triplets are awesome. Okay, we've done quarter notes. Now let's copy and paste that. Excuse me. And we're now going to do eighth note triplets. It's the same thing. Let me delete this. Here are 2 eighth notes. That's 2 eighth notes in the space of a quarter note. 2 notes played per beat. We want these to be triplet eighth notes. So we're going to copy and paste them up here, and we're going to do the same thing again. Kind of just do our best to put them in the space of 3. I think that's about right. And we're going to select them, and we're going to go into here. We're going to go eighth note triplets. Ta-da! And there we have our eighth note triplets, and we listen to them. Right, we'll get a little bit more of a dun 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 da da da. Spider, spider, biddly. I just have biddly for triplets because it's really, my friend Chris taught me this. I used to say diggada for them, but actually you can't say diggada very quickly, whereas biddly 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 you can say. So if you're doing groups of triplets played in like 16, 30 seconds, then you can say biddly 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 boom bagagoo boop badadly boop bagagoo biddly 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 boop, and then you can start scatting. So there we go. That is eighth note triplets. I'm not going to bother doing 16th or 32nd note triplets. I very, very rarely use them. Okay? That doesn't mean you don't have to, but I've shown you what to do. You take the values you want, 2 16ths, and then you copy and paste them, make them in, and try and fit them in the same space, and then quantize them. And it should look fairly even. like our eighth notes here and our eighth notes there. Sorry, and our quarter note here. So if we go... Okay, that sounded terribly messy. There we go. Okay. So now I've shown you triplets and how you can use them, or how you can create them in your DAW. The next step for us, logically, is to use them in our rhythms. Now, in my trailer music, or in fact, even pretty much any of my music, if I'm working with triplets to create more interest, I use them sparingly. The reason being, it can get quite messy if you use them all the time. Let's take a look at this rhythm here. This is our full, complete 16 bar rhythm, right? If I was going to use triplets, I would use them at the end of the 8-bar loop and or at the end of the 16-bar loop. Now, the best way to think of triplets is think of them as speeding up. You know what I talked about in the previous video, well, one of the previous videos, about taking a rhythm, and when you're completing this rhythm, you want to make it feel like it speeds up into the end, like we have here, last 4 bars. Boom. Okay, it feels like it's sped up. And we can take that feeling of speeding up to the next level by creating triplets. So let's just so we've got a point of reference, copy and paste, and then let's quantize. Boom. We have our triplets. And now this is where I would put them. I would put them at the very end of the speeding up section. So let's have a listen to that now. But I'm going to delete that. We don't need that. Do you hear how that worked? Dun 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 dun, spider, 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 biddly biddly boom. It makes it feel like it's ramping up. Now we can do the same here at the end of the world as we know it. Let's copy and paste that. And we want to go to the end of bar 8. And I'm going to plop these little chappies, oops, daisy, here. There we go. So let's have a listen to these last 4 bars of the first half of the rhythm. And that leads us into the next section. Use them sparingly. Okay? Now, most often, I would use 8th note triplets rather than quarter note triplets. You can use quarter note triplets like so. We'll use this example in the last 4 bars. I'm going to delete that. Remember, this is kind of fitting them in the space of, ooh, blimey, it's getting messy now, isn't it? Fitting them in the space of 2 quarter note triplets. There we go. And let's just move those in. Now, the thing to remember with triplets is it's quite good to have them used sparingly and have them used around the same values. What I mean by that is here we've got 4 quarter notes. So when we hear the quarter note triplets, they have a reference point. This isn't always the case, you don't always need to do this, but having the reference point, same here, we have got the straight 8th notes and then we've got the 8th note triplets. The reference gives you the contrast of the rhythms of going from 2 to 3 within a beat. Let's have a listen. Okay, now the trick here is you use them, if you're going to do that speeding up thing here, you go from a quarter note to a quarter note triplet to an 8th note to an 8th note triplet. Okay? that is the way you are going to speed up. Now, I think I just want to show you. Is it in here in the arpeggiator? Yes. So we get it here whenever we're using delays or arpeggiators. We have quarter notes, and it goes to eighth note, dotted, quarter note triplets. We're not going to talk about the dotted notes just yet. Eighth notes, eighth note triplets. So that's what we're thinking. We're trying to go from a quarter note to a quarter note triplet to an eighth note to an eighth note triplet, and then you can go to a 16th triplet. And that way you create an enormous sense of interest and anticipation for the finishing of your rhythm, for the finishing of your phrase, for the climax. Let's take a look at this, our 16th note rhythm. No, I said I wasn't going to talk about 16ths, but might as well, since I've got so many of them here. Now, what have we got here? We've got two eighth notes. I'm going to turn these into eighth note triplets. Oops, daisy. Make sure we're on eighth note triplets. Delete that. Just so that then that ramps into the 16th bar, 16th notes. Now I'm going to turn these into 16th note triplets. Remember, you've got to fit them in. Might need to zoom in a minute. You've got to fit them in the same space as two 16th. And we move down to a 16th note triplet quantizing. Bosh. Oh. Bosh. Now let's have a listen to that. I'm excited about this. This is going to sound cool. You hear how a 16th note triplet can become quite relentless. And I would use those even more sparingly. And if you do use them on high piercing sounds like a drum machine snare. Because because it sounds really messy otherwise. And also, it would be really hard to play. Well, actually, if you played a bass drum with that rhythm, you'd have to really make sure it was a really snappy bass drum sound and a really tight felt, probably not even felt actually, plastic head. But we get the point. We're using these triplets to level up our existing rhythms. Now, one little word of caution is when you have triplets going on with, say, your sticks and snares, try and align any other rhythms that are happening at the same time into triplets as well. What I mean by that is if you've got cellos playing in eighth notes, dum 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 dum, when the drums come in with triplets as well, so mimic that in the cello, dum 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 dum, because it really tightens it up and it really emphasizes those triplets and it really emphasizes the build intention into the release and the relaxation of the final element of your rhythm. Final? I keep wanting to say finale and climax all at the same time. Finale, climax, end of your phrase, of your rhythm. Right, I hope you enjoyed this. Go and have a little fiddle around with some triplets and hopefully you can make some really, really interesting sounds. I'll see you in the next video.